Hello and welcome to the first episode of Unofficial, the officially unaffiliated podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell, joined today by
Kellen Rice
and
Jackson Rice.
Right now, we're in the very early rough stages of the podcast. We are in a nice back room of the business class, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So,
What are we doing first?
What are we doing first? Remembering what else we got. Transitions.
Our first story today is going to be about Tessa Violet, who's an Ashland High School alumni. She graduated in 2008, and she said her favorite teacher was Betsy Bishop. Do you want to tell the story behind that?
Yeah, so this all started out as we were talking about Ashland alumni. Ashland High School student, Milo Bertrand, went up to a concert a few months ago up in Portland, and Tessa Violet opened. And while on stage, she discussed kind of her memories from Ashland, like talked about her favorite teacher, Betsy Bishop, and actually played the Ashland High fight song on stage, which was pretty interesting.
Can I interject real quick?
Yes.
Our fight song is terrible and needs to be changed.
I hate to admit I am a senior and I still do not know the fight song at all.
I'm going to have to agree.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't. Good old Ashland High. But anyway, Milo then contacted Tessa Violet on Twitter, asking what her favorite teacher was and who her favorite memories were. And so she responded and talked about how her favorite teacher was Betsy Bishop, who still teaches at the school today, as well as some other teachers she named that aren't here anymore. But it was really interesting to see like where someone has gone from Ashland to where they are now. And we were hoping of getting an interview, and we were trying to get in contact with some of the alumni from Ashland. That didn't happen. Which one of you is currently on the mailing list?
That's me. I attempted to contact Tessa Violet through her supposedly personal phone number, and instead I got put on a fan mailing list. And now every couple months I get a text about what single she's putting out. So that didn't work out very well. We tried to go through all the proper channels, and she really just would not respond.
No responses. We harassed poor Tessa Violet on every form of social media.
Really. Yeah, she should have responded. She could be here now. Yeah.
Missing out on the wonderful Rogue News podcast.
She obviously hates Ashland High School.
Yeah, a little bit about Tessa Violet. She's a singer. Probably should have mentioned that. She started by making vlogs on YouTube early 2010s, late 2009. She made a lot of money from it, $100,000. Like that could be nice if she put it back into her like alum school. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, she went to Harvard after that. That's with NASA.
Nope, she didn't do that. But she was very popular among Russian nationalists for whatever reason. She was named the Queen of Russia. I don't know why.
Well, she became a meme. It was because of her yellow hair. She looked like a Russian nationalist meme, and then people started putting her in instead of the actual thing in the Russian nationalist meme. Now she's famous among Russian nationalists. So
yeah, a great thing for Ashland High School to accredit. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, our alums often become Russian nationalists. It's kind of a weird trend. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Unpredicted.
I wish I was a Russian nationalist. Honestly, that'd be pretty cool.
Before Kellen gets us kicked out, Tessa Violet actually recently released a new album,
which we were going to interview
called
her
Bad
about.
Ideas. Yes, that's what it's called. Bad Ideas. Some good indie pop for the hip youth of the age. This age, this chair is so squeaky.
And nowadays she has 1.3 million listeners on Spotify. Which is
crazy.
Were any of you guys able to, or were you able to find out if Tessa was actually involved in the music program at the high school?
She talked to Milo, or in her one message to Milo, she talked about how she did choir. But the choir teacher that taught back when she was here, she graduated back in 2008, so she's been gone from the high school for a long time. But she's whoever she was in the choir, but whoever was in charge back then is no longer here. I don't remember who it was.
She was more, from what I found from like research, not like talking to her directly through social media, but what I found was that she was more interested in the theater program, specifically like through Betsy Bishop. Mm-hmm. And she was like a theater kid, and then she got interested in vlogging and like the entertainment industry through a school project. And only later did she actually become a singer.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. Also, we forgot to mention, but right here we have Parker Cam. Parker's making sure all the technical stuff's getting done out of the way. So we'll be cutting to him whenever we run out of things to say.
Nice. on a completely unrelated note.
You tried.
Did you know that Charlie Chaplin?
Chaplin.
Chaplin. Hey.
Did you know that Charlie Chaplin lost a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest?
I don't think that's true.
It is.
It is.
That's
It
true.
is. You can't
That's
question
terrible.
the Parker facts.
I don't believe that
Can't
one.
question him.
I'm
Can't
questioning.
question them.
Listen, we can kick you out whenever we want. You better get those facts right.
So in a minute, we're going to be talking with Lily Moorish, who helped contribute to the November edition of Rogue News by talking with Claire about her speech on hostile architecture and how it's become something that's being integrated into Ashland.
Hello.
And we're back.
Did you know if your car could drive up, you would reach outer space in an hour?
Thank you, Parker.
Thank you, Parker.
You just
Pithy bit of
interact-
wisdom.
Yeah.
Did you thank
Very,
him?
very
I don't know if
busy.
that's true, but we're gonna go with it.
So we got
Parker
another
actually
small
shares.
person over here.
Brutal.
Sorry, just the truth. Truth hurts. This Lily Moorish. Lily Moorish. Hello.
Hi, welcome, Lily.
Wow.
Would you like to perform your speech for us now?
No.
So, seeing as we've already talked about this, I do not have my speech, but I would love to talk to y'all.
So, Lily, why did we invite you here today?
I actually still don't know.
I can cover that.
All right.
So in November, there was a piece written by Claire Glassford and partially by me about hostile
And who are
architecture.
you?
I'm Jackson Rice.
Great, thanks.
Hostile architecture and hostile design, specifically in Ashland, Oregon, and how it's just kind of like going everywhere and no one really sees it. And of course, you probably don't know what hostile architecture is, which is why we brought in Lily. Lily was one of the people that Claire interviewed for the previous edition, the November edition of Rogue News.
I'm
So
an
do you wanna-
international expert on hostile design, and I'd love to discuss it. Yeah, so the reason that I was interviewed for that piece was because I'm sure none of you know this because it's, I never talk about it, no one knows. I do speech and debate, and I wrote a radio commentary piece, which is like a 5-minute speech that only exists in Oregon, about hostile design. And sort of about the rise of hostile design, the history behind it, and how some people are taking steps to combat it in their own communities. And yeah, it's definitely on the rise in Ashland and worldwide, specifically in the US and UK. And hostile design or hostile architecture is mostly design that is implemented in public places as an extension of loitering laws. So it's design that is meant to make it so that people spend less time in public places. So the majority of this design is specifically targeted at homeless people and centered around removing areas where homeless people are physically able to sleep or like rest. So in some places this is like slanted benches, spikes on the ground outside of establishments like department stores or banks where people would like sit and lean against walls. Or one of the most pervasive examples, which we see a lot in our town, is bench dividers. So what sparked that piece, from talking to Claire, I learned was at the bus stops for the just public city bus, they implemented bench dividers on the benches, which are just like bars that go over the middle of the bench, separating into like 2 smaller benches essentially, but also makes it so that you can't lay down and sleep on the benches. Because they were being used as a place for homeless people to sleep. And seeing as it is a crime to be poor, we aren't doing that anymore. So I was just talking to her about hostile design and about the International Design Crime Archives, which is a like online database that was pioneered by a British artist named Stuart Semple, who has actually had like a history of sort of socializing different aspects of art and design. There was a paint that was recently, or I guess a pigment, that was like discovered a while ago called Vanta Black, which you may have heard of, which is supposed to be like the blackest substance ever.
Yeah.
But then one guy bought all the rights to it and was like, I can use it, no one else can. And then Stuart Semple was like, I think that's stupid. So he worked with scientists and made his own, and it's touted to be like as good as Vanta Black, or maybe better, and is selling it at solely the production cost, so as many people can get it as possible.
like it.
And then he started the International Design Crime Archives, which are basically people taking pictures of and uploading pictures of hostile design in whatever their locales are, and then he sells stickers that are either free or a donation of like £1 to cover printing costs, that are like these big vinyl stickers that say like, this is a design crime, and this is a design against humanity that has been added to the international database of hostile designs. So you can stick it on things like those bench dividers, and then people know, hey, this is bad, as opposed to just looking at it, as many of us do who are like, housed people, and see those things and are like, oh, that's a weird choice, and instead being able to recognize it as like directly offensive and bad. Yeah.
I think that's a big issue, is that it's not apparent at first glance that anything's wrong. Like, a lot of people just think that it's a weird looking bench and that it has to take like a little bit of thinking,
For sure.
which a lot of people are pretty bad at. To just like, oh yeah, there's something wrong here, and there's something that like this is meant to prevent like a basic human need, which is really frustrating.
For sure, and that's definitely a big part of what the people implementing these hostile design strategies are trying to do. For instance, there was actually something that happened in Seattle pretty recently, which was there was like a homeless encampment that was below a like overpass, and again, since being poor is a crime, they decided to put in bike racks beneath the overpass because everyone's bicycling and locking their bikes up beneath the overpass, which again were just like huge sticky uppy things that made it so that people couldn't sleep. And that's subtle, right? You wouldn't see that and be like, this is obviously like trying to design people out of their homes, but that's what it is. And they try to make it subtle so that it doesn't provoke public outrage, but we got to see through that.
Yeah.
How much money do you think we spend trying to prevent poor people from accessing spaces?
A lot! So much! Yeah, I honestly have no idea, especially in our town. We spend, and it's a way of dodging the problem, because this is all money that could be spent on shelter infrastructure, which for instance in Ashland, we have essentially none of. There's a shelter that's run out of a church, but that is not year round, and it also has limited beds. And then there are some shelters in Medford, but we have really limited shelter infrastructure, and that's what this money could be going towards, as opposed to banning the piecemeals from the Pioneer Hall because some rich people built a really big house next to it. We could instead be using the money that we're spending on this.
Another issue in Ashland actually is the issue of affordable housing in general. We've been really bad about that. Even there's some things being built, or I don't know, I guess they're finished right near the high school, which was supposed to be affordable housing, and it was determined to be affordable or whatever by the government or by the city council. So they allowed it to be built, and it was touted as affordable housing, but it's not entirely actually meeting the standards of what Ashland needs to be fully affordable for people who live here. And Ashland has a big problem with that. Yeah, we have more houses that are unaffordable compared. I don't know. The ratio's off. We don't have enough affordable housing. That's the issue.
This is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unaffordable road news housing.
Yeah.
Road News is gonna build houses.
No, it's unofficially. I don't know. What is
Our
it?
name
Where
is
This is the
Officially unaffiliated?
Unofficial, the officially unaffiliated Road News podcast.
That's the name.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
the name.
Yeah.
I love that.
I wanted
Yeah.
to make it convoluted so that generations
Sketch.
past us have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah, it's really interesting. Even this year I've been going to a lot of school board meetings, because despite them being really boring in terms of actual procedure, they're talking about some interesting things if you dig under the surface a little bit. And it's just interesting, to see how a lot of people in power are just so ignorant about the dynamics of the high school specifically, because of course the school board meetings are about all of the schools in the district, but there have just been a lot of things where I'm I as a student obviously knew that was the case, but these people are super surprised by it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely helped illuminate for me just this sheer wealth stratification that is evident in Ashland. Because more so than other places, it's not even that we have a ton of rich people. We do have a ton of rich people, but we also have a ton of super poor people. But the main thing that sets Ashland apart is that there's not a ton in the middle. And that's why we have houses like the the DeBoer's house, and then also have such an enormous homeless population. Huh? Exposed? Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not private about it.
Yeah.
I think everyone
They built
knows
a
that
massive
it's
house.
an-
Yeah. It was one of the first things on Ashland memes. Like,
Yeah.
I think we're all aware.
We're not gonna put that in.
Yeah.
We're not putting
fine.
the exposed in.
Oh, well, they have money.
But,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just like, again,
We're saving it.
it's a divide. There's not a massive true middle class in Ashland.
So, talking about like the school board and specifically, do you want to kind of derail this conversation some more and get specific into like education policy, local education policy, and what's kind of going on with that?
Yeah, what have you seen at school board meetings?
That's
It's just
Um,
ambushed.
Well, I was actually so I haven't been able to go to some of the more recent ones, but I was at one that made a lot of teachers and I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but I'm going to anyway.
All right.
I was at one that made a lot of teachers and administrators somewhat angry, which was the October school board meeting, where a lot of teachers showed up to speak because there is a public comment period at the end of all school board meetings where anyone from the town can put in a little like
The
orange
old
slip and be
Ashland.
like, I want to say something, and then normally they would get 2 minutes to speak, and they're supposed to always make time for this. And school board meetings end. I mean, they start at 7, and then they normally end like 8:39ish maybe. But the interesting thing about this one was that the public comment period didn't even start until like 10 p.m. And a lot of people think, and from being there, I can confirm that this is at least my interpretation as well, that was a somewhat intentional move. On behalf of the school board, that they were intentionally trying to make the meeting go longer than it needed to so that teachers would have to leave because, you know, they're busy people with jobs, shocker, and so that they wouldn't be able to comment. And even at the beginning, they were like, oh, we actually have so many comment slips in, we think that if you could all like pick a representative or maybe cut the comment period in half, like I'll do 1-minute speeches, that would be preferred. And then after that, they still made the meeting go over time. So that was just kind of gross, I would say, because it was a very, it could be pretty easily delineated that was an intentional move to silence the voices of teachers and administrators who are really worried about the state of our high school. Because again, it was only high school teachers
I think
there.
that's a really important point, especially because I think it highlights the way people in power are the methods people in power are sort of using to silence people, which is it's
Yeah.
not as obvious anymore. Like you mentioned, like the bike rack thing, like they're trying to make it subtle. In this case,
Yeah.
they're like using sort of the rules and the time periods and the framing of the whole like system of government to push people out. And actually, this showed up. My older brother Julian, he tried to testify in front of I think Medford City Council about some climate change legislation that City Council was going to be working on, and the way they did testifying was different. So before you're supposed to like testify like in a room with everybody openly, but what they did this time is they would send you into a room alone with a dude, and you would just say stuff, and he would write it down, and it basically felt like nobody would ever see what you were saying. Yeah. So anyway, it was sort of designed to make people feel like they weren't being heard or that they shouldn't even try to testify, and so people did like end up not testifying because they didn't feel like it was worth it, and that was kind of an issue.
For sure. I think that one of the things that most clearly exemplified what I'm talking about was I had the joy and pleasure of sitting next to Miss Tammy Anderson during that specific school board meeting, and she had brought all of her grading, and she was doing it.
Wow.
Because she was essentially giving the message that, like, I don't want to be here. I don't feel like I should have to be here, but because of the situation that's going on in our schools, I do need to be here. I would rather not be here. I would rather be doing my work, but it is imperative that, you know, I say something about the state of our schools. And that was, Miss Martin also gave a stirring speech about, essentially how the way that the school is currently being run is ineffective, actively hurting students and teachers and administration, and is wasting people's time. and that is not okay.
Yeah.
I think
So,
we gotta
yeah, we're about out of time. Thank you very much, Lily, for coming on, to talking with us about school board and about hostile architecture. And also thank you to the two hosts, along with me, for trudging through this first, we'll say, impromptu episode of the Rogue News podcast.
Yeah.
But
officially unaffiliated.
officially unaffiliated.
Wait, I said it wrong.
Official, the unofficial, the officially unaffiliated.
There we go.
Yeah, so I hate to trample on the city of Tokyo like one giant lizard, but we are out of time, so we will have to discuss more later. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Rogue News podcast.
Total tech support, like total tech acknowledgement.
Oh, okay. But before we go, whoa.
We're
I
Also-
can't forget.
Yeah.
I can't forget. Of
Parker?
course, on Parker Cam, we have the man, the myth, the legend,
Yeah.
behind the camera, behind the mic, making sure that we sound and look just as gorgeous as we do.
Yeah. Said that thing about cars earlier. Oh no. Yeah.
So flying
If you're
Parker,
flying,
Parker
you're-
facts
give
will
us another
only be
fact.
more
I
abundant
got
in the
another
future.
one. You got another
Let's
one.
end on a
Alright.
Parker fact.
Did you know the song Happy Birthday has been copyrighted?
Dun, dun,
Crazy.
dun.
No.
That's a great way to end
Thanks
it.
for tuning.